I just want to know, should I change my password? Should I erase my account, as everyone suggests on TikTok? Or should I just not worry? Let's find out.
Hello world, a cybercrime group, Ransom VC, has claimed on their dark website to have successfully compromised all of Sony's systems, and says they're going to sell all the data they've stolen thanks to Sony not wanting to pay a ransom. This sounds really pretty bad. I mean, in the past, Sony has been absolutely crippled by a couple of very well-known cyber attacks. In 2011, they were forced to shut down PlayStation Network for almost an entire month, and in 2014, North Korean hackers stole unreleased films after they hacked Sony. Could this attack be number 3? Well, who are the attackers here? Ransom VC is a cyber extortion gang which only hacked their first victim less than a month ago, so these guys are pretty much brand new. In fact, they're so new that Ransom VC keeps flip-flopping about what they even are. If you browse the Wayback Machine, you'll find that just last month they announced that they were setting up a brand new cybercrime forum, Ransom Forums, with the forum launching the very next day. But just a few days later, they
I have a question. How old do you think these hackers are? Do you think they're 12, 18, 22, or 63? Those are the options.
decided that they didn't want to run a forum anymore, and instead launched Ransomed, an online agency that is looking forward to put sanctions on the less that dared not to pay. If we put the slight grammatical errors to one side here, we have what looks like a very primitive ransomware gang blog page, listing their first few victims. A couple days later, they updated their site again, and then a few days after that, they updated their site yet again. If you've ever hosted a website, you'll be very familiar with being indecisive about what you want it to look like, maybe even scrapping your idea for a domain altogether and coming up with something totally different just a couple days later. That's these guys. I just don't get the feeling that they've got much experience being cybercriminals, but they settled on this about a month ago, and ever since then have been posting updates on new victims they hacked.
I mean, you got to start somewhere, but imagine starting at hacking Sony. Holy crap, guys, that's a good beginning.
Every few days. So far, their alleged victims have mostly been rather small fish, but this Sony hack could definitely change that. But are they being honest with us when they say they compromised all of Sony? I mean, Sony isn't one company. There's Sony Pictures, Sony Financial Group, Sony Interactive Entertainment, and so on. The 2014 hack that saw North Korean hackers stealing unreleased films targeted Sony Pictures, and the 2011 hack that resulted in PlayStation Network being taken offline for almost a month targeted Sony Interactive Entertainment. So for these guys to say they've hacked all of Sony as if there's one single server out there which has all the Sony things on it just doesn't make any sense. But the miscreants posted proof,
Oh my god.
screenshots of a developer's PC, a PowerPoint presentation detailing some kind of virtual machine setup, and a documentary showing the names of 6,000 files they nabbed from Sony, which hints that the breach contains things like code, documentation, and build logs. In other words, not very high value data. I mean, there's no evidence of highly embarrassing leaked conversations between Sony executives like we were treated to in the 2014 hack. But maybe I'm missing something, because in the wake of Ransomed VC announcing the hack, the interwebs had an absolute meltdown.
12 to 18 for sure.
Sony has just been hacked, and if it's as bad as we think it is, could mean PlayStation Network getting shut down again.
Yep, your credit card's addresses and all personal data will all be sold in exactly 2 days, and there's nothing you can do.
Good news is, if you can call it that, only 6,000 accounts have been affected so far.
Guys, I gotta cancel my credit cards.
This level of reaction from the TikTokers, I think, is really straightforward. In their mind, Sony owns PlayStation, so if Sony is hacked, then PlayStation must have been hacked. And if PlayStation is hacked, then that must mean they can't play their video games. But while TikTok was going through their silly little meltdown, there was a twist in the story. Because someone going by the name Major Nelson posted on Breach forums saying, "You journalists believe the ransomware crew for lies. Far too gullible. You should be ashamed. Ransomed VCs are scammers who are just trying to scam you and chase influence. Enjoy the leak." Then he posted the full data breach for free, a 2.5 gigabyte archive. But what does it contain? Well, if you run a simple search for instances of the string password, you will find a decent few passwords. But based on the context, a lot of these look like passwords for test setups rather than keys to the next Sony Pictures film.
Oh, that's
There
not that
are a
big of a deal
decent
then.
few email addresses in here, along with a bunch of code and other things, all of which could potentially be leveraged to facilitate possible future breaches, maybe? But there's nothing to warrant the level of meltdown that took place on TikTok. PlayStation Network isn't getting shut down, and no one's got access to your credit card details.
That's not bad.
The bad guys seem to have just gained access to some arbitrary server responsible for automating the building and deploying of code, potentially just for some very boring software that Sony runs. But who Major Nelson is and why they would want to crash Ransom VC's party is a bit of a mystery. The account quite literally spawned just to make this post and hasn't been online since. However, I spoke with someone who has some inside information.
I wonder who these hacks are, you know, because it's like hack versus hacker, kind of a fight going on secret anonymous forums. You know, I just don't understand the drama behind these hackers. I'm curious how they make their decisions.
Someone I confirmed is a mod on the current version of Breach forums. He claims to know the leader of Ransom VC and said that these guys don't really hack anyone themselves, but rather just buy initial access to them on some dark web marketplace, which he said
That's not even a
explains
hack.
Major Nelson as
That's just
just someone
purchasing
else
access.
who bought access to the same Sony
Lester.
server as them. And the
life
ransomed
of a
in
gamer.
Ransomed VC is a
Man,
bit
Lester's
misleading,
dangerous.
because he said that these guys just extort victims. There's no encrypting of files going on here at all, as that's something that they're still working on. He also had a lot to say about the identity of the individual behind this operation and their links to other illicit operations. However, in the time I had available to make this video, I just wasn't able to verify those claims, and I only want to relay information to you guys that I can be reasonably sure of, but that might all come up in a future video. There's been no reaction from Ransomed VC to the brief TikTok meltdown they caused, but by all accounts the group does still seem to be operating, but their dark website and ClearNet Mirror aren't very stable, often going offline. But that wouldn't have been the case if they'd used a reliable hoster, like today's sponsor, Akamai Connected Cloud.
Alright, that was really interesting, guys. So don't erase your PlayStation account. Don't listen to the TikTokers. Or do. I don't give a shit, man. That would be stupid, though. But if you are worried, change your password. If you don't have double factory authentication on, two-step factory authentication or whatever it's called, I would definitely turn that on. I have that on for everything. There's not an account I don't have that on. So be safe out there. We'll stay on top of this. I'm curious to find out more about what the hell are the hackers doing. These guys just seem like dummies who stole a bunch of information. They paid for it. And then they're like trying to get clout and attention by acting like, oh, look, we hacked Sony. Yeah. Who knows, though? Who knows? What do you guys think? Let me know. I'm interested about your guys' opinion here. I almost changed my password.